If you thought this gimbal was tiny, try this one. The Crane M2S. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Mario So, and today we'll be talking about the Zhiyun Crane M2S, which is Zhiyun's newest gimbal that replaces the Crane M2. But before we get started, if you're new here, please consider subscribing for other content similar to today's video. And if you're already subscribed, thank you again so much for being here. It's greatly appreciated. So this is the Crane M3 that came out end of last year, 2021. And it's such a small gimbal, almost the size of a phone gimbal, maybe a little bit bigger, but it can hold full frame mirrorless cameras. And for this gimbal, Zhiyun did it again. It's smaller than the M3 and it can still hold full frame mirrorless cameras, which is pretty insane. All that power in that tiny motor right here. But before we talk about this gimbal, this is not a sponsored video, but Zhiyun did send me this gimbal about a month ago so I could go ahead and try out and create different content with this gimbal. So I created a few pieces of content with this gimbal, mainly using Sony full frame mirrorless cameras. As usual, I'll be leaving links in the description below if you wanted to check this gimbal out. So I'll tell you a little bit about the camera combo setup that I used for this gimbal. I used the Sony a7 III and the Sony a7 IV. Not only can this gimbal hold phones, action cameras like the GoPro, small point and shoot cameras, or apsc crop sensor cameras like the Canon M50 or the Sony a6000 series. Now you're able to hold full frame mirrorless cameras on this little tiny gimbal. So throughout this video, I'll be showing you sample footage that I took with this gimbal. I'll be writing down as well which camera combo lens combination I was using for each of the clips that I'll be showing you throughout the video. The times that I took this gimbal out on a shoot, I used the Sony a7 III with the Tamron 17-28 f2.8, which is sort of a lightweight zoom lens. And on another shoot, I also used the Sony a7 IV with the Tamron 20mm f2.8. The body of the a7 IV is very similar to the a7S III, so that can give you an idea of what sort of lenses you could use with your a7S III if you have that. I tried using my Tamron 17-28 on the a7 IV, but I couldn't get it to balance properly, so I had to go with a lighter lens, the Tamron 20mm f2.8, which is a very tiny and a very lightweight lens. So that's something to keep in mind when you are mounting a full frame mirrorless camera on this gimbal. So let's first talk about the size. So to me, this is one of the most important features on the Crane M2S. It is the size of a phone gimbal, a lot smaller than the M3, and yet it has strong motors enough to carry a full frame mirrorless camera, albeit with a light and more compact lens. So this gimbal has extended axis to make it easier to balance a full frame camera on it. This M2S weighs only 549 grams, which is really light. This is only about 50 grams more than the previous M2, and it's about 150 grams less than the Crane M3. You can find on Zhiyun's website a compatibility list of all the cameras and lenses that could fit this gimbal. So if you are running a full frame Sony mirrorless camera, you could probably attach to it the Sony 24, 2.8, the G lens, the more compact version, or even the Sony 50mm 2.5G compact version. So let's talk a little bit about handling. So the gimbal feels very comfortable in the hand with quick access to all the controls such as the trigger button, the fill light, the mode button, the record button, and the joystick. The built-in display screen is also very handy. It doesn't have the touch screen that the M3 has, so in this aspect, this gimbal is more similar to the M2. It also doesn't have the zoom slider like the M2, but in its place, it has the fill light switch. When I was using the Crane M2, I like using it with the included mini tripod legs here. I like to use it close like this, so it would give me a little bit more handling, yeah, because I felt like this part was a little bit too small for my hand, so I like having this there as well. Attaching this to the gimbal made it easier and more comfortable for me. And these mini tripod legs are also smaller than those of the M3 right here, right there. This gimbal supports all the modes we're familiar with, like pan follow, lock, POV, vortex, and go mode. Portrait mode will be available on a future firmware update. Next thing, let's talk about the little fill light that comes on this gimbal, which is almost the same as the one that comes on the Crane M3. Even though the light is quite tiny, it's actually quite bright. Let's see if I can show you here. Right there. You can adjust the intensity of the light, and you also get 4 color gels to change the color of the light, which are magnetic color gels that you can slap onto the front. The fill light has a color temperature of 5500 Kelvin and a CRI of over 90, which makes it very color accurate. The way you access this fill light is exactly the same as the M3. You push the light button switch up and hold it for a few seconds until the light turns on, and then you can push the button up to increase the intensity or down to lower the intensity. If you want to turn it off, just hold that button down for a few seconds until it turns off. This gimbal also comes with Zhiyun's new quick release system, the 4.0 they call it, which is also the same as the one on the M3. To unlock it, you slide the button here. Not sure if you can see, you slide the button here to the unlock position. And that way you can push this red button and unlock the plate. Once you put your camera in there, all you need to do is switch this back to the unlock position as well and insert the plate back right there. So pretty cool, pretty handy. You don't get the Manfrotto plates though, so if you have a workflow that include Manfrotto plates or Arca Swiss plates, then you're out of luck. Zhiyun does say that they have specialized plates for individual cameras, so they have that available if you wanted to get that as well. The battery life on this gimbal is actually very impressive. According to Zhiyun, the battery life lasts 10 hours, and with USB fast charge, you can charge this gimbal in about 1 hour and 42 minutes, which is really fast. You can also charge the gimbal while using it with a power bank, so that comes in very handy. All right, so now let's talk about the price, which is one of the most important things for you, maybe, I'm not sure. The Crane M2S is priced at $269 US. And this is for the standard package, which only includes the gimbal. If you wanted to get the combo package, you'll be paying $349. And the combo package includes the nice carrying bag, the white carrying bag that we saw on the Crane M3, and also includes the phone mount if you wanted to use it as a phone gimbal. I was very impressed with this gimbal when I was shooting with it. Both times that I went out to shoot with this, it was cold, -10, -15 degrees Celsius. And in one of the shoots, it actually started snowing, but the gimbal held on pretty well. I mounted this gimbal as well on a monopod to get me a little bit of a different angle, and it handled that quite well too. And the fact that such a small gimbal is able to handle my Sony a7 IV is actually quite impressive. I was a little bit skeptical about this gimbal in the beginning, seeing that it was so small. I was skeptical that it wouldn't hold my Sony a7 IV or my Sony a7 III, but it handled both quite well. I think this gimbal is going to be for you if you are someone who is buying perhaps your first gimbal and your main camera is maybe an APS-C camera, an action camera, a phone, and you plan to get a full frame camera with a lighter lens. This gimbal is going to easily handle all of those setups, but if you wanted to upgrade to a full frame camera down the road, you could still use this gimbal with that camera as long as you have a light lens. And if you're someone who likes to travel a lot and don't want to carry too much with you, or maybe have a bad back like me, and you want to go compact, just have one camera body, one lens, and one small gimbal, this might be the one to go for as well. All in all, I think Zhiyun did a really good job in increasing the strength of the motor on this gimbal to make it not only available to phones or point and shoot cameras, but to even full frame cameras, which is quite impressive. You'll be a little bit restricted in terms of the type of gimbal moves that you can do sometimes, depending on the lens that you have with it. But if you have a bigger camera setup with a longer zoom lens, a heavier lens, this might not be for you. You might be looking now at that point at maybe the Weebill 2 or other Zhiyun gimbals. If you're looking for other gimbals to see which one's for you, I've also made videos on the Crane M3 and on the Weebill 2 on my channel as well. Links in the description below or maybe up here. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for future content from me, hit the notification bell and all of that YouTube stuff, and I'll see you next time.
I told you. I told you, yeah. Oh, nice. I told you.